Hi, I'm Nicola Spirig. I'm the Olympic champion from London 2012, and you're listening to the Physical Performance Show.
And the winner is...
Failure is not an option.
I've had my ups and my downs.
I think it's an absolutely breakthrough experience.
Welcome to the Physical Performance Show, the show designed to inspire the pursuit of your physical best performance. I'm your host, Brad Beer. Listen in as we delve into how the world's top physical performers achieve their success, as well as the highs, the lows, and the journey of getting there. Let's get ready, set, let's go. Welcome back, or welcome to the Physical Performance Show, brought to you by Sanitarium PB and Pogo Physio. I'm Brad Beer, physiotherapist by trade and training, and founder of Pogo Physio. This show aims to educate and inspire you towards the pursuit of your own physical best performance. We do this through interviews featuring some of the world's top physical performers and also some of the world's preeminent experts in their chosen fields. Each week, we'll bring you the guests' highs, lows, and learnings through their careers. We do this through featured performer episodes, coaches' corners, interest editions, and expert editions. And today's episode is a featured performer who is one of the greats of modern day triathlon, and that is Nicola Spirig. Nicola Spirig, by way of bio, is a Swiss Powerhouse Triathlete. She is the 2012 London Olympic Games champion, and then she followed that up 4 years later by picking up silver in the Rio Olympic Games behind previous Physical Performance Show guest Gwen Jorgensen. What makes Nicola so unique and so interesting an athlete is her longevity. She will be shooting for her 5th Olympic Games campaign come Tokyo 2020. And as you'll hear in the show, she's recently announced to the world that she's expecting her 3rd child ahead of the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games. In this episode, you'll hear around Nicola's backstory, the interesting but so successful relationship with her coach, Brett Sutton. Nicola recalls the conversation she had with Gwen Jorgensen as she ran to the line in 2016 to try and win her 2nd Olympic Games title. You'll be enlightened to know that Nicola's favourite fuel before a race is chocolate, and that even the Olympic champion gets nervous on the start line. There's so much in this episode. Nicola Spirig, 2012 Olympic triathlon champion, and Rio 2016 Olympic Games silver medalist, sharing on the highs, lows, and learnings of her incredible career to date. Let's jump in with Nicola Spirig. Nicola Spirig, this is an absolute delight to have this time with you. So thank you. Your life is full, and as I believe is now public knowledge, congratulations on your recently announced pregnancy, to be expecting your 3rd child leading into the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games.
Yeah, exactly. Hi, everyone, and thanks a lot. We're really happy, to be expecting our 3rd child.
Amazing. Tokyo for you, Nicola, the 2012 Olympic champion, silver medal in 2016. And, here you are going to what would be your 5th Olympic Games in Tokyo. And I believe baby would be due in April. Correct me if I'm wrong, 2019.
Yes, exactly. So the timetable is quite strict. It's a big challenge, of course, but it's still my goal. And I can just hope that not a lot of things go wrong and I have too many injuries. But then I think it's really possible, and it's really possible to be still competitive in Tokyo. So I'm looking forward to that challenge.
I believe in 2017, after the birth of your 2nd child, your daughter, 4 months after you gave birth, you placed 13th at the Rotterdam Grand Final. So you're not unfamiliar to returning to the highest level of competition after giving birth.
Yes, well, thankfully I have some experience after two kids and the 2 pregnancies I already had. But I think it's different every time, and you never know how giving birth is going. It's it's always a bit of a surprise, and you have to be careful after giving birth with your body. But I think the Olympics itself, it's over 1 year after giving birth. So that was a time that I felt really good. Of course, it's also a matter of how can we organize ourselves with 3 kids. So it will definitely be a challenge. But we are so happy. Like, we were sitting together, my husband and me, and discussed, and we agreed that our first priority would have to have a family with 3 kids. And if that means I can also go to my 5th Olympics and be competitive there, that's amazing. And if it means I try everything but I fail for some reasons, that's okay for us as well.
Yeah, what a healthy perspective. And I'm not sure if everyone's familiar that, Rito himself is such an accomplished triathlete, and he himself was a 3 times Olympian. So between you, even at the moment, that's 7 Olympic Games. So, of course, no one would put any pressure on your children because they'll have their own journey. But there's a very rich gene pool there, isn't there?
Well, yes, my husband was definitely an amazing athlete himself. He was vice world champion, European champion, and as you said, 3 times Olympian with a diploma. So we were both really successful athletes, but I think there's a lot, like it's a whole puzzle with a lot of puzzle pieces to become actually professional. And Rita and me actually hope that our kids will love sports, but will probably not choose triathlon because it's a lot of expectations and a lot of pressure if you have an Olympic champion and a vice world champion as parents. So I think for children, that's not the best start. If you, even when you're a kid, you have people saying, oh yeah, you're becoming good and you have the right genes. So we are hoping he finds, and the little one finds another sport and enjoys to move and be active.
Yeah, and I know that's something close to your heart through the great work you do with the kids racing, the Nicola Spirig Kids Cup. That's a project that's near and dear to you, I believe.
Yeah, definitely. Yes, we have our own kids series in Switzerland. There are like 8 races all over Switzerland, and now in the last 2 years, we always also helped Greece to have a kids race and Cyprus to have a kids race. And the goal is just to get kids active, to get their whole families there and show that sports is a great thing to do. Of course, also show what triathlon is. And to me, it's amazing to see the little kids doing the triathlon. And my favorite category is the 5-year-olds who come with their swim aids and the Leica bikes, and it's just great to see.
I've got a beautiful 5-year-old girl who was up early this morning, and when I would love to see her go around in hopefully an equivalent here in Australia as the Nicola Spirig Cup. So
no, they're really cute. It's really nice to see them.
Yeah, gorgeous. And practically, Nicola, with your pregnancy, I mean, how far into that will you train, and what will that look like for you in the coming months?
As I mentioned earlier, it always depends a bit how the pregnancy goes. The last 2 times I was quite lucky. I didn't have any big problems in pregnancy, so I could train the whole way through. Of course, there are certain rules, like training is not looking the same as usually. For example, the high intensity sessions are completely out, because if I have a lack of oxygen, the baby could have a lack of oxygen as well. So I'm more doing basics, endurance and strength stuff. But it's still, I try to keep a good base and still train about 2 hours a day. And I did that the last 2 times, basically until the end, so just to keep a base.
And I noticed you were running on an Alta G treadmill there on your social media gallery on Instagram. Is that something that you would typically incorporate through your pregnancies with your training?
Yeah, I'm quite lucky. I have an Alta G in my own house, so that's probably something special. Yeah. And so I actually use it quite often also in normal training, for training certain skills and doing certain specific sessions on it. But now, of course, in pregnancy, it's great because you can take off all the weight and therefore not hitting the ground hard. So for the baby, there are no bad hits that when it's bigger, there could be a problem. Yeah. And of course, for me, it's nice not to have so much weight running around. So it's great for both.
It really is an exceptional tool. We use it here inside the physiotherapy practice. I must ask, I mean, not outside of a pregnancy for you, you said you'd use it for some skills. What would that look like practically with the Alter G, Nicola?
Well, you can basically do sessions you can't outside. For example, I can run with 19k per hour and take the weight off, and it's not hard for the system. I can still talk to people and still run like really fast. So it's only hard for the legs and keeping the turnover. And if I do that a lot, I can do it for an hour. So I could never run 19k per hour just for 1 hour outside. Maybe if I go downhill, but then the risk of injury is pretty big. Yeah. So I can do that without having any risk of injury. I can do that without having a hard session for my system. But the legs still get used to moving really quickly and getting used to some speed. Yeah,
and I mean, your legs were moving very quickly going to the line in the 2012 London Olympics with that also exciting finish with Lisa Norden. Before we go to the highs of your career, Nicola, your early days, I believe you found yourself in the sport at around 10 years of age, following your uncle and father's lead. How did your entry to triathlon start, and who were your early inspirations?
When I was a kid, I just liked doing sports overall. So I'm coming out of a family with a lot of sports teachers. My grandfather was a sports teacher. My uncle was one. My father and my mother were sports teachers. So I had the opportunity to try out a lot of sports, and I played basketball for quite a long time, and we were skiing a lot in winter. And I did some other sports. So triathlon was one that I really liked because you can combine 3 disciplines basically. And my uncle and my father did triathlon just for fun. So, of course, I thought I have to try that out as well, and I liked it.
And you're around the age of 10. Could you ever have imagined your life to turn out like it has now, you know, many years later being an Olympic champion?
No, not really. I was never the one saying that I want to go to the Olympics as a kid. I enjoyed doing sports, as I said, and I also like training. Like my sister was quite talented as well, but for her, always like 3 sessions a week were enough for her. That was fine for her, and I was the one kind of enjoying training a lot and going out there and just enjoy myself. But no, I never thought I would be Olympic champion. That wasn't really my goal as a kid.
And who was the first triathlete that you admired or aspired to be like?
Well, funny enough, actually, I became junior European champion when I was 16 or 17 in 1999. And at the same event, at the same race, my husband Rito became elite European champion. So I was quite looking up to him at that time, and he was able to sing the national anthem. I didn't even know the words for it because I wasn't prepared. So, he was definitely one I was looking up as an athlete. He was the best Swiss athlete and male Swiss athlete, and I quite saw him as an idol. And in the women's field, I think I never had one specific idol, but I admired some, how do you call that in English? Some things of different persons. Like I liked the way Loretta Harrop was racing. I kind of was impressed by Emma Snowsale. There were quite a few persons I looked up to for certain skills and certain ways of racing.
What was it about Loretta Harrop's racing that you admired, Nicola?
She was never, for example, she was never the fastest runner, but she knew how to turn the race around and how to bring her tactics to the table and make everyone race her race and finally win, without being on the paper, maybe without being the strongest athlete or definitely not being the fastest runner. And I found that quite impressive, to not just sit there and wait and then run, but she really changed the race, and also for a while with a few other girls changed the whole way of racing, with swimming fast and then just riding away of them. So that was quite interesting to watch.
And I mean, thinking about taking the race to the other competitors, that's certainly something that you did in the most recent Olympic Games in Rio, where you were quite happy to push the pace on the bike leg, but obviously it wasn't the course, or the help wasn't there to form a breakaway. So you know, all the women, the top women, dismounted together and hit the run. And 5Ks in, you're running with the unbeaten at that stage Gwen Jorgensen. For many years she hadn't been beaten, and you had barely been noticeable on the world triathlon scene. And here you were, 5Ks to go, head to head. Were you concerned at that point that you didn't have the lead over Gwen that you wanted, or were you were ready for a dogfight, so to speak?
Going into the race, I had different tactics, and I knew it was going to be really, really tough to beat Gwen. My preparation wasn't perfect. I had a broken hand a few months before the Olympics, so we had to change the whole training, and I couldn't do any international race before the Olympics. In fact, I hadn't raced Gwen since 4 years. I think since the Olympics in London, I hadn't seen her in a race. So there were quite a lot of insecurities, and I just had to prepare this race with different tactics. And of course, one scenario was that I would get off with the lead group, and as you said, Gwen was unbeaten. She was the fastest runner, so I just had to try and have a tactics where I could kind of unsettle her and get her out of her own rhythm. But it was really hard because, even as you said, the first 5K, I was basically just hanging on and suffering and hoping she wouldn't drop me. So it wasn't easy.
And Gwen, we featured previously, and obviously everyone saw that remarkable footage, and I've been around the sport of triathlon for 20 plus years, and it was quite something where the cat and mouse started, and that's just the very heart of competition. We're talking about an Olympic medal here, and Gwen's recollection was, you girls were talking about who would take the lead into the headwind, and natural sort of banter around racing, and Gwen said, "Well, you're a mum, Nicola, I believe. That's much more impressive than the gold medal." Can you recall that? I mean, obviously you've spoken about this before, but, what was your recollection of the conversation?
Yeah, I can't recall that bit. I don't know if she just thought that, or if she said it and I was too tired to hear it.
Yeah, maybe.
But we definitely. That was kind of one of my goals, to get her involved in some banter, or mainly to get her out of her own rhythm. So that's why we were slowing down and pushing the pace again. But I knew I didn't have much time. I knew that we had 25 seconds on third and fourth. So I told myself, well, I have about 10 seconds to play around, and then we have to move again, because otherwise the other ones are coming from behind. But I recall the other things. I recall quite similar to Gwen. I was leading, and we came into the headwind, and I knew I had no chance if I was leading in the headwind and then she attacked afterwards. I would have had no chance. So I turned around and said, "Oh, let's share the lead. You go in front again." And she said, "No, I was leading the first 2 laps." So of course my answer was, yeah, well, I already have a gold medal, so you have to do the work. So it was kind of that banter and just trying to get her out of her rhythm. But as we could all see in the end, she was still stronger and she deserved that gold medal. And I was really happy with the silver because I knew that was a good race for me. I showed a really good performance. And knowing the lead in, like the broken hand and being there with the family, it was quite emotional and I was really happy.
Yeah, and how did training change with the broken hand? I mean, that's a heck of an injury to carry going into an Olympic campaign. What did that practically change for you and your coach, Brett Sutton? How did you work around that?
Yeah, it actually changed a lot because we were working quite well on the swim, and I was quite sure to be in the first pack. And then we were starting to work really good on the run. So the goal before the broken hand was really to just run Gwen down, to focus on the run in training, and just be as fast as her. But then I broke the hand and I couldn't swim. So I got slower in the swim again and wasn't sure I could stay with the first pack. That meant instead of focusing on the run, I had to focus on the bike to make sure if I wasn't in the first pack in a swim, I would get to the first pack on a bike and probably get away, attack on a bike. So it basically changed the whole tactics in our training. We changed everything. And as I said, I couldn't race one single international race before the Olympics, so that's not really ideal. And I wasn't sure where I was actually standing compared to the other international athletes. But that wasn't so important because I knew I just had to show my best performance and then to give my best of the day.
And that you did. And I mean, your Olympic campaigns to date, I mean, obviously that amazing gold medal in London. How did life change for you after becoming the Olympic champion, Nicola?
On the one hand, it changed a lot. Like, being an Olympic champion in Switzerland is quite special. As a woman and in Summer Olympic Games, I think there are only 4 women ever in Swiss history having won a gold medal at Summer Olympic Games, and the first one was back in 1900.
Wow.
So, yes, it's a really rare, special thing to have a gold medal. And, of course, that was interesting to people. That was creating a lot of publicity and was interesting to sponsors. So on the outside, it changed a lot, and I had a lot of attention and some amazing opportunities to meet people, to go to special events. I think for me as a person, it didn't change that much. And I had some events afterwards, like marrying and buying a house and having a kid, just basically in the same year, that probably changed me more than the Olympic title.
You're listening to Nicola Spirig, 2012 Olympic Games triathlon champion and 2016 Olympic Games silver medalist in the sport of triathlon, sharing around the highs, lows and learnings of her career to date. Support for today's show comes from Sanitarium PB. Looking to achieve your personal best? Sanitarium PB can help. This refreshing drink contains 32 grams of protein per serve to help with muscle recovery when included as part of a balanced diet. Sanitarium PB is made with a balanced blend of milk and plant proteins, all your essential amino acids, and contains no artificial sweeteners. Find Sanitarium PB in delicious chocolate or vanilla flavours at your local fuel station. Be your personal best. Recover and refuel with Sanitarium PB. Support for today's show also comes lovingly from Pogo Physio. We exist to help you get back to your physical best following injury. We want everyone who walks through our doors to cross their physio finish line. That's where we high-five you and celebrate the fact that you've completed your rehabilitation and that you are back to your physical best. In addition to traditional session-to-session appointments, we offer some industry-first fixed fee service options, including our very popular monthly wellness boosters and also our 2, 6 and 12 week comprehensive unlimited access finish line programs. To find out more about Pogo Physio's services, jump over to pogophysio.com.au. For now, let's jump back with the 2012 Olympic Games triathlon champion Nicola Spirig sharing around her highs, lows and learnings. I found it interesting, Nicola, in preparing for this conversation today, that after Beijing, where you finished 2008 Beijing Olympic Games, where you finished sixth, I believe, that at that point you wanted to go and complete your law studies, which you did, and that brought up a conversation with your career coach, Brett Sutton, that he wanted you to focus full time and you wanted that law degree to balance out life and fulfill that side of your life. So what ended up happening there, and how is it that you got back together with Brett and pushed on to win the Olympic gold?
Yeah, well, Brett and me he's an Australian professional coach, and I'm a Swiss who is coming out of a teacher family. Education is really important. Of course, there are sports teachers, but they're still teachers. So education was always a priority for me and my family. And so I started, I was training with my father for 15 years. And he did a great job. I think it's not easy to train an athlete, a young athlete through puberty, to become a good elite athlete and still having fun and enjoying her sports. That's not easy, and he did a great job. He made me an Olympian, was still training me in Athens at my first Olympics. And then I changed to Brett, and it was a completely different world. He thought completely different to my father, and we had a lot of discussions, and we are still having a lot of discussions. But I think that makes our cooperation quite interesting, and we have 3 things in common. We both have a lot of respect for each other. We have the same goal, to make me the best athlete I can be. And we both know from each other that the other gives absolutely 100% to reach that goal. So that always makes us sit together again and work for a way forward. But after Beijing, I wanted to go back to my law studies, to university, and finish my law studies. And he couldn't understand it at all. He went to the internet and was looking up the numbers of law students in the world finishing their studies per year. And of course, there are thousands of law students finishing their studies, and sent me that number and told me, well, and there's only one Olympic champion in triathlon per 4 years. So, of course, now you know what you have to do, because you can still study when you're 50. And I was like, well, I still wanted to go back to university. It didn't really impress me. And luckily, I kept my opinion there and went back to uni. But it did make him not train me for a few months. And I said, well, that's fine. I know that's my way to go. I know I have to have finished good education to have that security afterwards, to actually focus on sports and really focus 100% without worrying about my future. So to me, I knew it was the right way to go. There was no other way. And after a few months, he understood and accepted that I'm Swiss and that I had to do it my way. So we got back together and he started training me again.
That's brilliant. There's strength in differences.
Yeah, definitely. We have different thinking, and but yeah, somehow we still work quite well as a team.
That's great. Nicola, we say this show is about the highs, the lows and the learnings. Before we throw to the learnings of your physical life, the lows, can you describe the darkest day in your professional sporting career? What's that look like for you? We've gone from the remarkable highs of Olympic gold and then a silver in Rio. What's been the darkest day in your sporting career to date?
Well, that's actually quite difficult to tell. I've always considered me quite lucky, or I think I'm also quite good in focusing and preparing for the important days, like the important races. And I can't say I failed dramatically at a race that was important to me. But of course, I had injuries. I had quite a few injuries. And especially in the beginning of my career, that was quite hard. I was struggling to deal with injuries and not being able to work on my goals as I wanted to, and having to still spend a lot of time, but just for recovery and healing and not really for hard training sessions. So that was something I really had to learn, to be patient and to work for my goal, even if the steps forward were really small and you sometimes couldn't really see it.
What injuries, Nicola, did you have to work through in the early part of your career?
I have one of my weaknesses that if I run too much, I get stress fracture in my shins. So I had about, 4 or 5 stress fractures or stress reactions in my shins. And one was really bad, like I couldn't run for 4 months in 2011. So some people already said the Olympics 2012 are gone, you can forget that.
Yeah. Wow.
I was like, well, I hope not.
Yeah.
I also had a stress fracture in my thigh. And then, of course, the broken hand. I have now 3 plates and 23 screws in my hand.
Wow.
And what else? Yeah, quite some smaller things as well. But the stress fractures or the stress reactions depends how you look at them. They are annoying because you can't really. We are always looking for ways to still train, and I just had to stop running and just be patient. And the result actually for my career was that I'm only running every second day. So my body always needs a day to recover, and then I can run again, and I can run quite a lot on one day, but then I need a day where I just swim and bike and let the bones recover.
And that's what you implement even now, Nicola, yeah? You still have that one day off?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, of course, it can be that there's a short run after the bike or a run on the altitude, but really tough running sessions or long running sessions, no, I can't. I still have that, yes. I still only run every second day.
Yeah, so much wisdom in that. Nicola, let's do a performance round. So this is some rapid fire questions around your training. Are you ready?
I hope so.
Training session you most dislike, Nicola?
Treadmill sessions without any intervals, just running on the treadmill.
Yeah. Training session you most love?
Interval running sessions out in the forest.
Oh, beautiful. And it's very pretty around your home, I believe.
Yes, it is, yeah.
It's stunning. Favourite pre-race meal?
Chocolate.
Is that right? Is that what fueled your Olympic gold?
Yeah, that's right. I ate 100 grams of Swiss chocolate and a banana before the Olympics in London for breakfast.
That is, you have just given scores of triathletes and endurance athletes liberty to eat chocolate before a race. Thank you. Bedtime and morning time. I mean, this obviously looks different, with children on the scene, but, are you quite strict with your bedtime, or you just do the best you can around your family?
I'm actually quite strict, or I pay attention that I'm in bed at least at 10 p.m. So
yeah, lovely.
That's my latest bedtime if I don't have an event or something.
Great. Who's the athlete you most admire, Nicola, and why?
I think it's still my husband, because I saw the training he did and the results he achieved, and that was quite amazing, because at some stage he didn't train that much, but he still was an amazing athlete.
Yeah, Rito Hugh. I was a triathlete, a junior in the 90s, and I remember your husband clearly featuring in races that I used to watch. Who's the toughest competitor you ever raced against, and why?
That's a hard question. That's really. I would say Loretta Harrop, but I didn't race her that much. But if I would have raced her, it would have been her.
Yeah, no, that's great. Is there a mantra that you consistently use, or some self-talk, Nicola, when you race or you train?
I'm still quite nervous before races, actually, and what helps me is that I keep reminding myself that I can only do my best, and that's enough. Yeah. Like, I can't do better than just try my best and do the best I can, and that's fine for me and for everyone else. And
so liberating. So not only have you helped us all enjoy chocolate, you've made us feel better if we feel nervous. So your best recovery tip, Nicola? What's your best recovery tip?
Well, actually, I don't like it, but I feel much better if I mount my bike again after the race and do 1 hour of warm down. So that works. That helps a lot.
Yeah, that's great. Nicola, a fun question here. One word to describe your racing style. What's that one word?
Challenging.
Yeah, nice. Nicola, the zone. How would you describe being in the zone?
Oh, I would describe that too. If you have a good race, if you just feel good, you don't think much. It just flows, and to me that's quite amazing. To me, if you have a bad race, I start thinking a lot and too much. But if I know I have a good day and I feel good, there don't have to be much thoughts. It's just enjoying the feeling, and that's when I'm in the zone.
When was the last time you were in the zone, Nicola? Was it Rio? Did it happen that day?
It happened on the bike. Everyone thought I was working too much, but it actually wasn't that hard for me. Wow. I was just I was just doing my pace, and it wasn't flat out, and I just felt really good and knew exactly how fast I could go to still be able to run. So yes, on the bike, and no on the run. I was suffering on the run.
So you were in the zone on the bike. Nicola, final question in the performance round. What's the hardest training session you've ever done?
Well, there are two different answers to that, because the hardest on a paper might have been my first marathon that was in training, and that was on a 400-meter track. Oh. And it consisted out of 400s and 200s. And it was in Cozumel, where it was quite hot. So you can imagine that's quite a hard, long, hot session. But actually, if I would answer honest, then it would be just a normal session where I just felt really tired and had no energy, and probably even an easy session where I just didn't find the motivation or the energy to actually do it or do it properly. So I find that much harder than a hard session when I'm motivated and fit and strong.
So that's just so refreshing, Nicola. You've made us feel good about chocolate, about being nervous, and also about those sessions that just feel terrible where you just want to give up.
Yeah.
So they happen to the best. And Nicola,
well, the important thing is that you don't give up even in that times, but it's hard.
Yeah, well, that's just refreshing to hear that they still happen even to the world's best. Nicola, if you could boil everything you've learnt, this is a very difficult question, from your physical years of competing and training at the highest level, down to one bit of advice to listeners who are out there trying to pursue their physical best, what would Nicola Spirig's one piece of advice be to listeners?
Keep working consistently. Like, there will always be troubles and problems and hard times, but if you keep working and if you keep the work consistent, you will finally reach a really high level.
So being consistent, that's something that sounds like you've always implemented through your career from the age of 10 onwards. Yeah,
kind of, yes.
You're listening to Nicola Spirig, 2012 Olympic Games triathlon champion and silver medalist in 2016, sharing around her highs, lows, and learnings of her career to date. Now, if you missed last week's episode, it was a story of highs to very low lows, returning to highs. And that was the story of Australian Olympic swimmer Dan Smith. And in that episode, Dan shared very candidly around hitting rock bottom with ice addiction and other recreational drugs before he broke through to make an Australian Olympic team and fulfill his childhood dream. It's been getting a lot of feedback, so if you missed that episode, here's a little snippet of what you missed.
I feel like that I'd probably do a bit more work on my identity and stuff, so I'm able to, handle the pressure and stuff, because I wasn't prepared for that meet. I was quite prepared physically, but I just didn't have that mental capacity to back myself. They say when you train, it's 90% physical, 10% mental, and when you race, it's the other way around, and I wasn't prepared for that.
To tune into the full episode 137, featuring Dan Smith, download the episode from within your favourite podcast player, and whilst there, take a look at the show archives dating right back to episode 1 featuring surf lifesaving Ironman champion Ali Day. For now, let's jump back with today's featured performer, Nicola Spirig, on her highs, lows and learnings. Nicola, some fun little questions here. Are you ready to finish these sentences? The most important thing in life is?
Health and family.
What works you to drive hard?
A big goal, a big challenge.
Where does pressure come from, Nicola?
In my case, mostly for myself.
What's the difference, Nicola, between a great coach and not a great coach?
That he understands the athlete, that he treats the athletes differently, depending on the personalities, and that he can really see when an athlete is tired or when he needs more work.
Nicola, are you more externally driven or more internally driven?
I'm more internally driven.
Yeah. Nicola, what mistakes are you afraid of making?
Well, that's a difficult question. I'm afraid of making a lot of mistakes, but I also think that you can learn out of a lot of mistakes, so that most of the mistakes make you better if you keep working on it. I'm afraid of making mistakes concerning my kids, so that I really try to give them the best I can as a mother, but I know I will make a lot of mistakes there, and I hope they're not too big.
Yeah, such the weight of parenting, isn't it, enormous? And unlike an Olympic campaign where there's a definitive guide to success, the podium, there's not the equivalent in parenting, is there? There's no scorecard.
No, not really.
But it's the joy of it as well. Nicola, fun last one here. When you open your eyes in the morning, you?
I see my little girl wanting to stand up and to have me playing with her.
Gorgeous. Nicola, a fun question. Everyone always likes to know the personality behind the performance or the guest. You've been asked this, I'm sure, before in your career, but if you could have dinner with 3 people outside of your family, that's a given, living or past, who would you take along to dinner and why?
I would take Roger Federer. I would take my grandfather, and I would take who else? Well, I think I'm happy with those 2.
Yeah. Well, that's your grandfather and Roger Federer. I mean, that's beautiful. Roger Federer, I suspect you might have already had some time with Roger, correct?
Yeah, I did, yes. Yeah. Not much. I saw him quite often, but we never had time to talk a lot. So, but I find him really impressive. I find him impressive on the court, but I find him more impressive off the court, like how he treats people and how he's always polite and always really patient. That's quite amazing.
Yeah, given the pressures on him.
Yep.
Yeah, no, beautiful. Well, I think you're doing a great job too, Nicola. Finally, for our time today, a physical challenge for the week. Every guest of the Physical Performance Show, Nicola, issues a physical challenge to the listeners for the week. So what's Nicola Spirig, Olympic Triathlon champion 2012, silver medal in 2016, what's your physical challenge of the week going to be?
Well, at the moment, as I said, I don't really do a lot of intense sessions, or I can't do the high intensity sessions, but I can still do some sessions where I have some 10, 15 second sprints, because you don't have the lack of oxygen yet at that time. So I do, in running, for example, I do hill repetitions. I run up a hill for 15 seconds, and then I walk down the hill again, and then I run up a hill again. So that's my challenge, because at the moment that's my session. I do like 3 times 8 hill repetitions, and do like 5 minutes recovery in between the 3 sets, and that's my challenge of the week.
That's the Nicola Spirig challenge. So if you do take that on, do let Nicola know how you've gone with it, and where can we best follow your journey heading into Tokyo, Nicola?
Yeah, I'm on social media, maybe not the one that posts the most, but the important stuff will be on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, and I have a website, so I will keep you updated about the important things.
Yeah, and the other things don't matter.
Exactly.
One of those posts, Nicola, just to finish our time, the 29th of September 2017, I read this as one of your captions, and I just thought there was so much in these words. You wrote, "Only the ones who are determined and passionate enough to try can explore their limits and win. Impossible is just a word invented by humankind. The definition of it is in your hands." There's a lot in that.
Yes, I think it's really true. And for me, it was a few years ago, I would say, or like just 2 years even before London, I couldn't even have imagined to really win a gold medal. That was in my mind, that was basically impossible. And only with a lot of work from Brad and with a lot of training, where I could see, yes, I am getting pretty good. And he showed me, well, he's the coach of, 24 world champions or even more now, and he had 4 or 5 Olympic medals. So he showed me all the training data from his other athletes that he trained earlier, so I could compare with really the world champions and the Olympic champions of these sports, and see I'm getting quite close. But as I said before, in my mind, it was basically impossible to win a gold medal, and only when I made it possible in my mind first, I made myself believe I could win one, it got an achievable goal.
Yeah, wow, so much there. Nicola Spirig, it's evening time there in Switzerland, and as you mentioned, one of your children's asleep, the other was in bed with your husband, Rito. Hopefully you can give them a cuddle before they go to sleep. So thank you so much for your time this evening.
Thank you very much.
So there you have it, another episode of the Physical Performance Show, and I trust you enjoyed today's share-ins from Nicola Spirig. What an incredible athlete, and I hope today's interview was a glimpse into the workings of such a successful career to date. If you enjoyed the episode, please reach out and let Nicola know. You'll find her easily over on social media, on Instagram at Nicola Spirig Official. A big thanks to those of you who have been reviewing and rating the show over on iTunes. That helps this show get into earbuds of more listeners who, just like you, are looking to pursue and perform at their physical best. And a big thanks this week to show reviewer CB Perth. CB Perth gave the show 5 stars and commented, I've only just discovered this podcast and have binged on the running episodes. Awesome podcast. CB Perth, thank you for taking the time to leave the review. And as a way of saying thanks, be sure to reach out to me at Brad_beer on social media, and I'll make sure you receive a signed copy of my running and jogging bestseller, now in its second edition, You Can Run Pain Free. Big thanks also to the good folk who make this show possible each and every week. That is Susan Wilkin on all things show administration, Daryl Misson on all things audio engineering, and Matthew Walding on all things graphic design. If you've been enjoying the show, then one way you can show support for the show is to subscribe to the Physical Performance Show. That, just like leaving ratings and reviews, really does help this show index higher in the search engines and reach more people. So you can hit subscribe from within whatever your favorite podcast player is. And if you've listened to more than 4 episodes and enjoyed it, then please go on this week, hit subscribe. That would mean a lot. Keep the podsies coming too, gang. They are awesome. I love to see them. Screenshots of your favorite episode and tag myself in at Brad_beer. And also the show has a handle at Physical Performance Show. And we really enjoy seeing those come through and what you're doing to enjoy them. Out for a long run, long ride, doing the chores around the house, whatever it may be. Now, coming up on next week's episode of the Physical Performance Show, we keep the featured performer theme going and we keep the triathlon great theme going. Next week, I'm excited to share with you an interview that I recently conducted with none other than Mark Allen. Mark Allen, for the endurance junkies, needs no introduction, but for the uninitiated, he was voted by ESPN in 2012 as the dominant and best endurance athlete of all time. Mark Allen won an incredible 6 Hawaii Ironman titles, and up until 2017, he held the run course record at the Hawaii Ironman World Triathlon Championships. Mark's a deep thinker, and I know you're going to really enjoy insights into the physical performance, principles and disciplines of such a great performer, Mark Allen. So tune in next week for Mark Allen's highs, lows and learnings. Until then, keep pursuing your physical best. I'm Brad Beer, and this has been the Physical Performance Show.